365 data is automatically backed up can feel a lot like this.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen,
Backing up Office 365 data with Veeam feels like this. So back it up with Veeam.
All right, so let's start. Welcome everyone to Microsoft 365 Chicago. My name is Mohamed Derhalli, and in today's session, we're going to talk about extensibility points for Microsoft Teams and how we can use them to develop applications for MS Teams. Let's start with our donations. So the donations for this event are going to go to Chicago Public Schools Foundation. So it's all going for kids, help them in their learning, and for the teachers as well. So please, if you can go to this URL, or better, if you can go to this QR code and do some donations. They start from $10, so that would be really helpful. All right. So first of all, thanks to our sponsors who made this event be possible. Without our sponsors, such events, especially they're virtual, they wouldn't be possible. So thanks to everyone who participated into making this event be a reality. If you can, after this session, if you can go to the sponsors' websites and check out their services or attend the sponsor sessions, that would be awesome. All right, we really appreciate your feedback. So if you can scan this QR code after this session and provide feedback for the speaker, which is myself, that would be really awesome. All right, the raffles and giveaways. If you haven't participated in the raffle, and you opted, if you have participated in the raffle and you opted to talk to our sponsors, please, you can pass by to their the sponsors and participate in the raffle. You can get from 100 to 250 Amazon gift cards, right? So you can go ahead and participate in that. I'm pretty sure that everyone on the call is familiar with how Teams, how it works. So just a recap, if you want to participate in the chat, you have the link for the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. For now, we would turn off our cameras because it might make things slower for some people. And if at any point you would like to unmute the mic and just speak, feel free and let me know, right? Just raise your hand and let me know, and I can let you off mute. All right, so a little bit about myself. I'm a senior Microsoft 365 consultant at BDO Canada. I'm based in Montreal. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm more active on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out, you can reach me there. I work at BDO Canada. So at BDO Canada, we do solutions, anything related to Microsoft 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, anything related to modern workplace or even AI. We are specialized in these services, and we have a really big team to deliver solutions to our clients. So if you have any requirements related to these services, please let us know or reach out to me and we can discuss it. Okay, so the agenda for today, what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what Teams applications are and how you can prepare your development environment or your production environment in order to host Microsoft Teams applications, how we can extend Teams, extend Microsoft Teams, what are the tools that we can use, the extensibility points, and we're going to have few demos in for these extensibility points, right? And please, if you have any questions, just ask them right away. I'm monitoring the chat, so feel free to ask any questions. You don't have to wait until the very end. All right, so how Teams applications work. So Microsoft Teams on its own, it doesn't do anything on its own, right? So Microsoft Teams consider it as this shell, or like as this octopus that's sitting right there and reaching out to different places, right? So we have Microsoft Teams sitting right there. I'm logged in the browser, on the Windows client, or on my phone, and I have Microsoft Teams right there. However, Microsoft Teams, it's not storing documents on its own, right? It's not storing code on its own. It doesn't do anything on its own. It needs others in order for it to work, right? So let's say that I want to write an application that represent a tab, custom tab in Microsoft Teams, or I want to write a bot for Microsoft Teams. These assets, or like these services that I'm going to develop, they're not going to live in Microsoft Teams. So in my case, I will have my web page sitting outside of Microsoft Teams somewhere on a server. I would have my bot sitting in Azure, and Microsoft Teams is going to talk to these services, right? So Microsoft Teams is going to reach out to the web page that I'm hosting somewhere, and it will display it inside Microsoft Teams as an iframe, right? In the case of bot framework, I have the bot living in Azure, and Microsoft Teams is going to reach to Microsoft Azure in order to communicate with the bot itself. When I mention here like an iframe, consider as a YouTube video. When you're hosting a YouTube video on a website or on LinkedIn or Twitter and so on, when you're hosting that video, you're hosting it as an iframe, which is a window from LinkedIn or from your web page to YouTube. The video is still hosted on YouTube, but you're just viewing that video from a different location. Same thing with Teams. Teams is just hosting that web page. It's like Facebook when you're playing a game. The game is hosted somewhere else. It's not actually in Facebook, right? So same thing right here. Teams is just going to host that web page. So how can Microsoft Teams, how can it know about like that there is a web page right here or there is a bot right here? It knows about this by having an application package. And this package includes three things. Includes 2 images and a file called a manifest, right? So this manifest file is very important because what it does is it points to these external applications. It points to the bot framework itself, the bot application that we have, and it points to the tab that we developed, right? So we have an app package, and it's going to point to our services. And then when we package all of these, when we package the 2 images and the app manifest, we add this package to our to Microsoft Teams. So basically, nothing lives in Microsoft Teams itself. Everything is outside, and we're just hosting stuff in different places and pointing to these using the app package, right? So nothing lives in Microsoft Teams. Now, how can we develop this app package? Like before we develop this, how can we generate this app package, right? How can we generate this? So we generate this by we have a couple of ways. So we can use either development tools like Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, or we can use an App Studio, which is another application in Microsoft Teams that lets us develop, that lets us package applications. So it's like using an app in Microsoft Teams in order to generate an app package. So we're using an app to generate an app, right? But when using the App Studio, we're not actually writing any code. We're just generating that package itself, right? So in order for us to develop on Microsoft Teams, we'll need to prepare our environment, right? So we'll need to have a development environment in order to start developing Microsoft Teams. And one of the things that we'll need to use is something called side loading. Side loading, which means right now you're working in a company and you want to develop this Microsoft, you want to develop a Teams application, but you don't have the ability to upload this team application to your environment until the Teams administrator enables something called side loading. Side loading, which is going to enable you to upload the application to be tested by yourself or be tested by a specific team. So you upload the application to a specific team and you can develop that. And we're going to see a demo how this is done. But first of all, let's discuss something in Microsoft, a tenant. So if you don't know what a tenant is, let me just show you so everyone is on the same page. So right here, as you can see, if I click on my name, I have my username at mybdodev.onmicrosoft.com, right? So I have, this one is a tenant. So I have a tenant, mybdodev. In your environment, it would be something else. It would be probably like maybe IBM or Facebook or anything like that. So your company's name would be right there. And if you have a domain, then you wouldn't have this on Microsoft.com. So I have this development tenant in order to practice and work on Microsoft Teams solutions, right? And do anything related to Microsoft 365 development. If you want to have a similar tenant in order to do development, so what you would want to do is Microsoft 365 developer program, right? So, and you would go to this one, the developer program for Microsoft. And here it would just give you this button. So join now. You would join and sign up for a development tenant. It will ask you, it's free to use, and you would get 25 licenses for test users. As you see right here, I have I have test users that I'm doing tests with. So you can start with this one, right? So this is how you can get a development tenant. Now for the side loading that we're gonna demo right now, in order for you, like, let me show you something. If I go to Microsoft Teams, you see here I have apps, or if I go to this ellipsis right here, I have more apps. Both are gonna take me to the same location. So if I go to apps, because I'm an admin on this environment, I will get this upload custom app, right? I will get this one, upload for my organization, because I'm an admin. However, I enabled an option for side loading to be able to upload applications just for myself or for a specific team. And in order to enable this one, maybe like I don't want the application to appear to the whole environment, right? I want the application just to be for myself or for a specific team. So I need to enable this one. And in order to enable this one, you would go to admin.teams.microsoft.com. This will take me to the Teams admin center. And in there, I will go to Teams apps and I will go to setup policies, right? So under setup policies, by default, all users are going to be under this policy. You can add a new policy right here. So I can add a new policy and you see this option. So upload custom apps. And if you click on this information icon, you're going to see that this is also known as side loading. So you'll need to enable this one for your policy and make sure that this policy, for example, like this one, you would manage users and you would add the users that will need to upload applications in order to develop and stuff like that. They will need to belong to this policy. So this is how you would do it. You don't want to do it like for the global. You don't want to do it for that. But you can, if you have your own development environment, like this development tenant, feel free to have it enabled for this one. And I believe like it's going to be enabled by default for you if you have a development tenant. Another thing to note is, let's go to manage apps right here. You will also need to make sure that this org-wide app settings, that you have allow interaction with custom apps. So if this one is turned off, that means you're not going to be able to interact with custom applications, right? So you would need to have this one turned on. All right. So this is for the policies. So you would go to admin.teamsmicrosoft.com, admin center, and you can also reach it if you go to the admin center in Microsoft 365. You would reach it from that location and go to setup policies and make sure that you have a policy where the custom apps is enabled, right? Okay. So now the development tools that we have in order to develop Teams applications. What do we have? We have Visual Studio itself, and with Visual Studio, we'll need to have the Visual Studio Teams Toolkit extension. So this is an extension that we can use in order to develop applications for Microsoft Teams. We can use VSCode, and we have two ways in order to develop applications with VSCode. We can use the extension for the Teams Toolkit, which favors JavaScript. So not all the applications that we build with the Teams Toolkit would support TypeScript. So that's why it favors JavaScript. And we have the community initiative, which is the generator, the Teams generator, which is the Yo Teams. And for this one, in order for it to work, we'll need to have these packages installed. And in order for this one to be available, we'll need to have Node.js. So it's Node.js based development, right? We'll develop on top of Node.js. We're going to create our application and package it and upload it to Microsoft Teams. So these are global global packages. The Yeoman generator, which is stands for Yeoman, it's going to enable us to have a wizard-like experience in order to develop, in order to create or scaffold a new application, right? And this is the actual generator. If you're familiar with SharePoint development, for example, you have the Microsoft SharePoint generator. So, and all of them, they're using Yo. All right, so let's see. Let's have a quick demo and see how we can start with the Yeoman generator, right? So I will go. Let me pull this one. So I'm right here in my terminal. And what I suggest and highly recommend is use a tool called NVM, right? So for example, I do development with SharePoint and with Microsoft Teams. And sometimes I do stuff related to Node.js on its own. So I might have different environments where each one is going to require a different version of Node.js. So one thing that I'm using is NVM. And this tool is going to let you manage Node.js versions. So rather than having to install Node.js on like one version of Node.js and go through that wizard, you would just install NVM and then use NVM to install new versions of Node.js. So if I go NVM list, I will find all the Node.js versions that I have on my computer. So if I want to use this one, I want to switch to another environment and start working. Maybe I'm using this one for SPFX development stuff. I would say NVM use and then specify the version of Node.js that I'm using, right? So this is how we are going to install Node.js. I just use NVM and install Node.js. Now let's see the packages that we want to use. So if I go npm list minus like G stands for global, so all global packages, and depth equal 0. So show me all the global packages, and this depth equals 0 because packages on my environment, like Node.js packages, npm packages, they're like they have this tree hierarchy, right? So this Yeoman package would depend on other packages, and these packages would depend on other packages. If I run just npm list global, it would list too many packages for me. I just want the high level, the root level, which are these ones. So here I have the Yeoman generator. I have the gulp CLI, which is required. I have the generator teams, which is the latest package. Sometimes, like you're going to see in the documentation, that they're using an older version, version number 2, but here I'm using the latest one. All right. So if you want to install any of these, like if you don't have them installed already, you would just say install, npm install, or shortcut npm install. And I want to install maybe Yeoman, and then minus G, which is global. So I'm installing Yeoman. If I want to install multiple of these, I would just go Teams, and this is going to be global as well, right? So I'm installing these packages. All right, so I have these packages already there for me. Now I have this Yeoman package and generator teams. What I can do is I can say yo teams, and if I click hit enter, now it's going to take me through that wizard. Remember that this Yeoman, it's like when you're using Visual Studio, you go to new project. It's going to take you through a wizard where it's going to you're going to specify the name of the project, the solution, the project, and so on. This one is going to give it to you, but as a terminal, right? In the terminal here. So here, like solution, I can just leave it as the same, create a subfolder, and the project name, I want it to be like this. The company name, BDO Canada, that's fine, and so on and so on. Now when we, I'll show you. Now here I choose what type of project, or like what do I want to create, right? So I want to add the messaging extensions feature. I don't want to have a tab. I want to have a bot, and so on. And this is how we're going to be able to create a new project. Once I go through this wizard and maybe specify that I want a tab and so on, it will generate a project for me, right? And we're going to see these ones in the next slides, what each one stands for. So let's go to the extensibility points. All right, so first of all, we have the tabs, right? And the tabs are what you see on the left-hand side in Microsoft Teams or the top level inside of channels, right? So these are the tabs. Bots, they're simple to understand, which is anything that you're going to have a conversation with, either in a personal scope or in a chat, in a Teams chat. So we have bots as well. Messaging extensions, which is a way to extend the UI for Microsoft Teams in order to have dialogues or to search for information in external systems. So messaging extensions is another way to extend the UI of Microsoft Teams, and we're going to see an example of this one in the demos. We have webhooks and connectors, which is a way to exchange information and send information from and to Microsoft Teams, and we're going to see an example of that as well. Then we have the task modules. Whenever you see task modules, think about dialogues. So task modules in Teams, they're just dialogues. We have the deep links. So whenever, for example, like you send a link to a folder or a document to someone, and this document lives in a channel, in a folder, in a subfolder, in a subfolder, this is a deep link. So we can actually form these links as well. We have link unfurling, and link unfurling, which is try, for example, to paste a link to docs.microsoft.com in a chat. You're going to see that there is a preview of this link in the Teams chat itself. So this is the link unfurling. It's going to give you a preview of that link in the chat itself. And let me actually show you really quick what if I go, for example, to docs.microsoft. I have here SharePoint. Let's go to any page, and let's have this one, for example. So if I go to a Teams chat and paste this one, see, now it gives me a preview of this one. And this is link unfurling, and you can do it for your own systems as well. So if you paste a URL for a specific system, you can have a listener and have this preview. All right. It was easier to show it to you. And then in meeting, which is a new feature in Microsoft Teams development extensibility points, which is going to allow you to gather information from attendees when they're joining a Teams meeting, right? So we're going to check some of these in this session. So let's start with the tabs. So tabs are going to allow you to show web pages in Microsoft Teams. They're just iframes, as we discussed as in YouTube example. So they're just iframes. They can inherit the Microsoft Teams theme, and we can use the SDK to communicate back and forth from Microsoft Teams and get the context of where we are. Right? The scopes are Teams, group, or personal. So we can have a tab that works on a personal scope, or we can have the tab on the Teams and group level. So the scopes, as we discussed, I can have the tab on personal scope. So this is called static. And code itself, when we're looking at the code, it's going to be static. It can be accessed only by one user, and it's going to appear on the left-hand side of Microsoft Teams. So just like these ones, these are anything that's going to be added right here is going to be personal scope. So for example, this application, when I go, it's going to give me a tab that's going to be personal for me. If I click on this one right here, so these are the group or Teams tabs. So they're shared and can be configured, right? So the next one is the configurable, which is the group or Teams chat, and they are basically the same thing, but we can have one that appears on the group level or on the Teams level. So the group chat is when you're having 2+ people participating in the chat, or the Teams chat, which is when you have it right here. So this is how you can specify the scopes. So the tabs context itself, how can we make the tab that we're developing sitting somewhere on a web server, how can we make it aware of Microsoft Teams itself? So we can make it aware by having placeholders. So we can pass placeholders to the tab itself. Here, for example, this is my web server, and I'm passing this value, which is going to represent my theme. And another option, which is to use the SDK itself, the Teams JavaScript SDK, in order to pass information to my tab itself. And we're going to check a demo right now how to create tabs. So let me show you. Let me just right here. Remember this one when I ran Yo Teams and then I chose a tab and so on. So this one will scaffold a tab project for me, right? And the tab project is going to look something similar to this. So let me just pull this one. And here I have my tab project. So it's the result of that wizard that I just went through. It's going to give me an application like this. Few things to note is this is just a Node.js project. And if we go to package.json, we're going to see the packages that are included in the project. So here we have Teams JS, which is our SDK. We have Axios library, which is going to enable us to communicate with web services. We have the bot builder for the bot framework if we're developing bots and so on. We have Express. So because we have a web server, and this is one of the libraries in Node.js that's used to have a web server. So we have Express. We have React DOM as well. Here we have an important library called ngrok, which is, you know, we're going to have a Microsoft Teams application, right? And this application is going to live, it's going to be hosted inside of Microsoft Teams. Like it's going to be hosted in a web server, but Microsoft Teams will need to point to that web server. So Microsoft Teams is in Microsoft 365 in the cloud. It needs to point to a web server. But now when we're doing development right here, we're doing development on our local machine. So Microsoft is not aware of the web server on our local machine. How can we expose this web server online to be accessed online? So we can have something called a tunnel. So a tunnel which is going to expose our local web server online so Microsoft Teams can see it. And this is done by ngrok. It's going to expose our local server online to be available and viewed by Microsoft Teams. So we have it right here. So let's see an important file right here, which is the app manifest. Remember that the package is just 3 files. The app, like one main image file right here, which is going to be represent our application. And then we have something called outline, which a 32 by 32 size image that should be a mix of transparent and white. And this one is the one that's going to appear on the left-hand side in Microsoft Teams, right? In the rel itself. And here we have the most important one, which is the app manifest. And if we look at the app manifest, we're going to see that we have static tabs. So the personal tabs in code in the app manifest are called as static tabs, right? And the most important thing that we have right here is the content URL, which is where the tab is going to be hosted. And we have the scopes. So the scopes, they accept group and team. But since we have only static tabs, the only supported one right here is personal. Here you see we have configurable tabs section. And this one, in case we're developing teams or like a channel or group tab, we would have it right here. Here, if in case we have bots, in case we have connectors, and this one is for messaging extensions, right? So as you see, like a single application can contain multiple features, but in this instance, we have only static tabs. So we have this one right here. Now, if I go to my component, this is just a React component. And if you look right here, I'm just pulling the in Teams, which is going to tell me if I'm in Microsoft Teams or not. I have the theme and I have the context. And then we have this use effect. And we're going to check, are we in Microsoft Teams or not? Because, by the way, like the tab itself, it's on the web server, right? It's on an external web server. It can be accessed by going to that URL directly. So we want to know, are we accessing that tab within the context of Microsoft Teams, or we're accessing that tab directly, right? So here, if we're inside Microsoft Teams, then just notify Teams that it's like loading the tab is successful. If not, we're setting a state right here called entity ID. We're sending that to a sad emoji right here. Now what we're doing is we're doing something. You see this one. We could have used that Axios library in order to fetch data from an external service, but here I'm just using the vanilla JavaScript. So I'm using the fetch API. I'm querying this. URL. I'm getting the late top 6 pictures, and once I get the data, I'm setting this cats array to the result that I'm getting back. Once this is changed, here I have my component right here. It's going to be rendered, and here you see the provider. I'm passing it the theme. So here we're using the components. They're coming from the React North Star. So if you're familiar with Office 365 development, you think of Office UI Fabric. So it gives you this these ready-made components in order to do your development. Here in this case, we have React North Star. So what they're going to allow me to have is when I have this provider and I pass the theme, if the theme changes, all these components are going to reflect the new theme. So this header, if I'm on a black theme, this header is going to show in white. If I'm in the default theme, this one is going to show in black. So what I'm doing right here is I'm looping through all the cats that I have, and I'm just rendering an image for each cat. Then here I have a button, and this button is going to call a function called generateCat. And here this generateCat is I'm getting from the current context. So you see the context that I'm getting here from the Teams SDK. I'm getting the current context. And here I can get a reference to the theme. So if I have a theme, then just store the theme, this theme name in the cat label. If I don't have a theme, just the entity ID, which is the sad emoji, right? So let's see this in action. If I pull, as you saw right here, what I did is I ran this command. I ran gulp ingrok serve minus L, which I want to escape the linting. But this is the important command, gulp ingrok serve. And what this is going to do is it's going to start a web server on my machine. It's going to do the tunneling. So it's going to be available online. And it's going to take all of these files and it's going to package them in a zip file in order for me to upload it to Microsoft Teams and see my work, right? So let's go to Microsoft Teams and I will go to apps and I will upload, and I will just upload it for the whole organization. I will go to tabs, this one, and when I run the gulp ingrok serve, my package is going to be within this folder. So it's going to be right there. Now the package is going to appear. Let's see. Here's our application. And if I click here, all this information that you see right here, this is brought from the app manifest, right? So anything that I specify in the app manifest, see like these to-dos and so on, and the URLs, anything that I'm specifying right here is going to show up in the app itself. So now I can add it and see, I have add. If I had an application that's configurable to be added to a specific channel, I would have here, like I would have a drop down and I would have an option that says add to team. So I would choose which channel inside which team I want to add this tab to. But in this case, because here we have a static tab, that means it's just going to be personal. So I don't have that drop down. So I'll click add, and the app is right there. You see, I can right click, pin it right there, and here are my cats. So because what I did, again, just for you to understand, I'm just querying the cats, setting that state. And here I'm just looping through them and displaying them right here. Now, when I click this one, I'm going to get the current theme, and I will store that theme inside that state, which is right here. So when I click on this one, I will store the current. I will get the theme itself, and I will do this query, right? And this is like a service. You're going to find it online where you're going to pass a text and it will generate a cat photo for you with that text on it. So in this case, is just going to be the theme name. If I click on this one, and the theme name is default. By the way, like if you see right here, I'm using invoke serve, and here I have this URL. Let's copy this one, and just to show you really quick, so you would know what's going on. So let's try to go to this URL, and I will append this link. I will append the link to my tab. Remember that the tab is just a web page hosted online, right? So let me go here and go to the tab, and there it is. You see? So I can access my tab online, and if I click, here's my sad emoji, because at some point right here, I'm not in Microsoft Teams. So set this the entity ID to sad emoji, right? So it can be accessed online, and there it is. All right, so let's go to the next demo, which is the next subject, which is the chatbots. So the chatbots, they're just web services accessed online, registered with the bot framework, and same thing, they can be added to personal scope or to a Teams channel or to a group chat. And if you're going to access them in a Teams channel or a group chat, then you're going to access them using the @mention. So you're going to mention the bot itself. Similar to them is messaging extensions, which are going to have bots in the back end. And we have few types of messaging extensions. We have the action commands, search commands, and the link unfurling. We saw the link unfurling, which is going to give you a preview of the link. We have two types, which are the action commands and the search commands. And let's see how they work. So the messaging extensions can be invoked from the command box, from a message context menu, or from the compose area. The message context menu is only supported with the action commands. So the action commands are just going to be these task modules or dialogues that they're going to enable you to fill some information, submit, and that's it, right? The search is going to allow you to just click something like here, for example, the GIF. You're going to click this one, you're going to find this box that's going to appear, and you're going to be able to search for something. It's going to give you some results. So this is search messaging extensions. The link unfurling, we covered this one, which are going to be just handlers that are going to listen to a specific URL and give you a preview of that. And this is how link unfurling are. They look like, and I'll show you the compose extensions. I'll show you this structure in the app manifest. So let's get into a quick demo. Let me just stop this one, and let me go to messaging extensions. So messaging extensions right here. So same thing. I would have my app manifest. So I have my app manifest right here. And as you see, I have the compose extensions. I don't have static tabs. I don't have configurable tabs. I have messaging extensions. And here I have the type is query. So if I'm developing an action command, the type is going to be action, or if I'm doing a link unfurling, it's going to be link. And here the parameter. So this is the parameter when I'm doing search in the messaging extension itself. For example, like in the case of searching for a GIF, that search, that text that I'm adding is going to be my parameter, right? And yep, this is like the most important stuff about this, about the app manifest. Another thing that you would need to know about is this environment. So inside my environment here, I have my own invoke subdomain. So each time it's just going to generate my domain for me. And here I have the app and the app manifest, the app ID and the app password. So remember that the messaging extensions, they're going to depend on Azure. They're going to depend on Azure Bot Framework. So they're going to talk to Azure Bot Framework. And from Azure Bot Framework, they're going to talk to the web service. So here, as you see, I have bot channel registration in Azure. And if you go to the configuration, you're going to see that I'm pointing to this URL, which is going to be the URL of my web service. And here I have the app ID. And if I go to manage, I will go and see the secret. So my application itself is going to point to the bot registration, and the bot registration is going to point to my web service right here, right? So my app point to this one, and this one is going to point to the web service, right? So right here, let's check our messaging extension and let's see how it's working. So and let me show it to you actually first. So let me show it to you. As you can see right here, I ran same thing. I ran gulp ingrok serve, and it's going to generate an app package for me right here. So let's go and upload it and see how it works. Then we can explain what's going on inside. So I will just upload this one, messaging extensions right here. And let's see how you can use it. So here I have my cat finder, right? If I click on this one, now it's going to ask me to add it. Same thing, all this information is coming from the app manifest. I will add. So first time I add this messaging extension, the first time it's going to pull this one, to pull by default this UI. If I close and you see here, I have my messaging extension. If I click here again, it's going to pull this. So how this is done is whenever the messaging extension is invoked, it will run this on query. So the first time it's added, or when I click on that icon at the bottom, this one, the on query, is going to be rendered. So here I'm just pulling a cat array from a JSON file that exists right here. So here I have all my cats, right? And what I'm doing next is, if this is the initial run, so there's going to be the first parameter is not going to be what I'm searching for. So the parameter is not going to be what I'm typing right here. It's going to be initial run. So if this is the first time, the initial run, then go pass this cat's array that I have, pass all of them to this process cat. So this process cat right here, what I'm doing is I'm getting all these cats from the JSON, and I'm just parsing this this another JSON and this preview, and I'm just replacing strings, right? I'm just replacing strings in these files. So I'm using here Lodash, which is an npm package library that I have right here in order to help me replacing stuff. So for example, in my JSON, I have something called card header, items 0, and set the text. So if I go to here, card header, I have the items, I'm setting the text to the cat name itself or the cat breed itself, and so on. So all I'm doing is just like replacing the text inside of that JSON file and having an adaptive card and then having a preview and then returning all of these to my results. And here I have the attachment and I'm submitting the attachment right here. And the result is list. That's why we're seeing them stacked on top of each other like this. Now, if I search, for example, if I say main, now it's going to search and give it to me as a grid. So here, if the query is not initial run, but I have something else, which is what I typed here, main, then this one is going to get executed. And here I'm just doing a query to find the cat breed where it contains main, and then same thing, I'm just passing the result to this process cats, and here I have it as grid. That's why it's showing as squares, right? That's another example of messaging extensions. All right, so let's go into another topic, which is the webhooks. So we have two types of webhooks. We have the incoming, which is you're going to be able to send a message to a specific channel. And we have the outgoing, which is you're going to be able to communicate with a web service and it would return something, a result back to you. So the incoming webhook, as we mentioned, is going to be on the channel scope. Incoming messages are going to be formatted as JSON, and it's going to be also supporting Markdown. So let's see how we can use incoming webhooks really quickly. So as we said, it's going to be on the channel scope. So if I go to this one, I go to connectors. Here I will have a type of connector called incoming webhook. So if I add this one, if I add this incoming webhook, Then let me just click again, connectors. Now it's added. It's going to be ask me to configure. So I'll configure this one. I'll say cat message, something like this. I'll upload an image for this webhook. So let me just upload this cat and create. When I do this, what's going to happen is, let's just wait. What's going to happen is it's going to give me this URL, right? So I can use this URL from another service and pass JSON representation of an adaptive card. So maybe, for example, like let's say that you're having a script running somewhere, and when this script is done, you want to send a message to this channel. So how can we do this? Let me show you an example of that in PowerShell. So here in PowerShell, let's say that we're running a script somewhere. What I can do is invoke REST method, and the method I want it to be post, and I want the URI to be the one that I got from my channel right here. And then what I can do is I can say the body that I want is going to be something like this. So let's just, oops. Just like that. So let me zoom in so you would be able to see it. So here I'm just invoking minus method, and then my link for the incoming webhook and the text that that I want to have. So this text is the one that's going to appear inside the channel. So now if I run this one, here it is. So now I have the message right here. So these are incoming webhooks, and they're attached to a specific channel, right? So if you have like a script running somewhere to do patch or to run some job, you can use it this way, or you can just use it from a web service, and you can pass similar to our messaging extension that we have just seen right here. Like this one, if I choose this result, you can have the webhook submit something similar to this one, right? Another example of, let me just stop this process. And another example of webhooks is the outgoing webhook, right? So the outgoing webhook is going to allow you from the team itself in order to communicate with a web service. So in order to do that, you're going to have to mention that web service, and it's going to have 5 seconds in order to reply to you, right? So same thing, you can mention the web service, pass some parameters, and it will reply with a result back to you. And how do we validate that the request was from Microsoft Teams or from another location? When Microsoft Teams communicates with your web service, it's going to have in the header an authentication, like in the authorization header, it's going to have this token, which is called HMAC, hashed based messaging authentication code, and you will need to verify that if it's coming from Microsoft Teams or not. I'll show you like in the demo how this is verified and how we can obtain that code from Microsoft Teams itself. So let me just show you in the demo. So we said that it's going to be available on the teams. Unlike the incoming webhook, which is available on the channel, this one is going to be available on the team itself. So if I go to my team, manage team, I go to apps. Here you see, create an outgoing webhook. So what I'm going to do is I'll go and say, like this. And the callback is going to be my service itself, right? So, and it has to be the service that you have and append API webhook and M365 cats. Here, I'll upload an image. So it's going to be the same image that we're using. And this webhook is going to be available on Microsoft Teams. Now it's going to provide me with a security token in order for me to be able to verify that it's coming from Teams in my application. So I'll need to use this token in order to use it for the authorization. And let's go right here. And the most important thing is here inside the environment, I will set this security token to the one that I got from Teams. So I'll set this one right here. Now we have the token, right? Let me just run this one so we don't, we save some time. And here's my web service, right? And inside my web service, what we care about is we care about obtaining the token from the current environment. So we're getting this token that we just added right there. We're storing it in this security token variable. And then what we're doing from the request that's coming from Microsoft Teams, we're getting the authorization header, right? And we're storing this one right here, the authorization header. And as you can see, we're comparing it to something else. So we'll need to compare the authorization header with something on our end. And that thing is, we're gonna construct that HMAC, right? So we're gonna construct our own HMAC to compare it with this authorization with the authorization header that we got right here. And we're using a library called Crypto, which is a library in NPM, in order to generate that HMAC, store it right here, and then we're comparing both. And as you see right here, when we're constructing the our own HMAC, we're using the security token that we obtained from Microsoft Teams. That's how we're able to compare both of them, right? So we're going to be able to use the security token that we got from Microsoft Teams in order to generate our own hash and then compare it with the header. And if they're the same, we're just going to return any result back. So we're going to just say echo whatever the text that was passed. If it's a fail, we're just going to say, no, that's a fail. And we're just going to return that result back to Microsoft Teams. So in order to do that, let's go to, for example, this channel. And what I'm going to do is, remember that we'll need to @mention it. So Microsoft 365 cats, this one. I'll just do something like this. And it should echo back the same text right there. And here's our logo that we have used. Yep, so that's how we would be developing the webhooks. So again, webhooks are on the Teams level. You would need to add them from the Teams applications area right here. And they're going to provide you with a security token. You add it to your web service, and you will be responsible for comparing that to what's coming from Microsoft Teams, and you can reply to it. And it needs @mention. However, the incoming webhooks are available only on a channel, on the channel basis, and you can communicate with it using that web service that Teams provided you with. So we explored messaging extensions like this. We explored the tabs, the personal tabs, and the webhooks, which are some of the things that you can do on top of Microsoft Teams. And we have used the Yeoman generator in order to scaffold all of these. So thank you so much for attending. If you have any questions, please let me know or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to assist you, and we can have a discussion. Thank you for joining our virtual Microsoft community. If you can keep hanging out and visit our channels, our sponsors' channels, that would be awesome. And thank you so much for attending this session. And I hope you're having a great day. Thank you, everyone.